Happy Monday. Hope everyone's doing really, really well this Monday morning. Again, the why of the Sherman seminar series is to be able to provide some value to people when it comes to planning for their financial future. So apologize to those that are watching on Instagram because I have to just flip the camera around so that way you can see the slides. For those that are watching on Facebook or YouTube or Periscope or Twitch, you'll be able to just see this as I'm going to be able to seamlessly use Restream, which is the platform that I'm using to be able to live stream this, to be able to share the screen with you. So again, why am I doing this? My why is to leave a legacy by positively impacting others. And so professionally, the way that I do that is I work in financial services and I look at opportunities that I can be able to provide value to my team in coaching and development opportunities to see how we can best serve the public. And one of the areas that I'm a big believer in is right now we are living through the digital disruption, right? For those of you that are familiar with the technology revolution, the .com revolution, and now we are going through what I would consider probably the biggest shift digitally and also the biggest electronic acceptance, because in the last year and a half, because of COVID-19, the global pandemic, a lot of places weren't allowed to go out. And so you were forced to be able to have to accept a lot of these electronic and digital ways of doing business, whether that's grocery shopping, buying your needs and essentials, your pharmaceuticals, just being able to even communicate and effectively learn was all being done online. And so that's really at the forefront of this. And so this particular topic today, we're diving into on retirement planning. But more so specifically, that doesn't get talked a lot about, is what I would consider probably one of the more important ones, and that is actually distributing that income. So this one's called income and income distribution in retirement. So this one's extremely vital because a lot of times people might be good at saving for their financial future, but it's how am I going to be able to tap into that income into the future? So one of the big ones right now, big topic, Again, you can communicate with me who I am. A lot of you that are watching me on the live formats know who I am and what I do, the value that I can bring to the table. The easiest, though, I would say anybody, again, if you don't find me of value for your particular situation, then reach out to someone that can help you. Or if you're one that's going to do it on your own, there's nothing wrong with DIY. Just make sure that you're getting as much information as possible. Feel free to reach out to me. Text me at 262-271-4411, or feel free to shoot me an email. I'll be able to help you out as you continue to navigate this. So what we're going to be able to hit on are these four main topics. Number one is, have you looked at your what your kind of quote unquote budget is? It's not going to get that boring. We'll talk about it, make it a little more lively. And then what does retirement planning income planning actually even look like? And then how can I make sure that I can outlive my income? Make sure that I do not outlive my income. And are there other things that I should be considering when I have a look at these things? So one of the big things is when it comes to saving for retirement, you want to do it as early as possible and be active in this regard. Doesn't mean that you're monitoring it every single day, especially if you're in your 20s and 30s. It's still 40 to 30 years off, so it's a far way to be planning for. But make sure that you're being cognizant of it and taking time to be able to have a look at it. Other thing to be able to look at is when you hit those different retirement phases of life, you're going to have basically three main ones. So when you hit retirement, it's kind of what we call your go-go years. And then for the next decade, it's going to kind of typically go kind of 65 or 67 to age 75, 77. And then you're going to go into your slow go years from age 77 or 75 to about 80, 85, 87. And that's because your kids at that point are a little bit older. Even your grandkids are coming to visit you. And so you don't have to be as mobile because they're more mobile in coming to visit you. At the same time, when it comes to retirement, a lot of those places that you wanted to visit, the Eiffel Tower, the Alaskan cruise, you did that in the first act of the go-go stage of your retirement, and you don't necessarily want to go see those places again. And then finally, in the final stage of retirement, we call it your no-go years. Typically at that point, if they're a married couple, one of the spouses might have passed away, and so a lot of times you start getting into more of a stay-at-home lifestyle. So when we have a look at what people need in order to survive, a lot of this you can kind of break down into kind of like the needs versus the wants. So these are going to include fixed payments like rent or mortgage, property taxes, electricity, gas. Those are slightly variable, but a lot of times based on how people spend, they can keep it pretty predictable. Cell phone bill becomes a part of those core essential needs. The ones are the things that you might enjoy doing. This could be the hobbies. This could be going out and visiting family. This could be the trips that you're wanting to take. And so that becomes an added piece to your overall budget. And so for some people, it's just being realistic with that. So I think a lot of times people think that, okay, so I don't have any plans on maybe going anywhere in particular, or I have a goal of paying off my home. But that mortgage budget then ends up being utilized for some of those fun trips that you're taking. Or again, if you haven't necessarily planned out what you want to be doing for some of those larger vacations or visits. Well, actually, when you retire, I guess it's all vacation, right? But maybe there's those things that you might want to just sit down and have a look at. Hey, was Hawaii always that goal? Was Jamaica that goal? Was going to Rio de Janeiro down in Brazil? Have those kind of been these lifelong goals that now you can implement into your life, especially if you've gotten rid of some certain budgetary constraints like a mortgage, right? Where, hey, I'm not going to retire until I pay off that $1,500 mortgage. Now, the reality is for most Americans, their mortgage also incorporates their property tax. So with that thought in mind, if you're already taking care of property tax in your kind of monthly flow, so you're like, okay, $1,500 was the mortgage and property tax. That means when I get rid of the mortgage, the property tax is still $250 a month or $3,000 for the year. Still want to make sure that you plan for that. But still, if you think about that, if you have basically $1,200 every single month to be able to use and spend, you can save that, after 6 months or 10 months, and now you can go on a very nice vacation. So for a lot of people, where is the income going to come from? So for the average person, they're going to have a pension, Social Security. For pension, that's going to be questionable. That's going to be all about where you worked, federal, state employee, insurance company, big financial institutions. Some of those are still holding on, or healthcare industry still holding on to pensions. Most businesses and companies and industries have moved away from that, and that's where their employer plan comes in, like a 401k, a 403b, where there is a contribution typically from your company and from yourself. You have the individual accounts that you have. At the same time, for other people that maybe have been able to save beyond that, you have different assets like real estate. Maybe you decide to rent out your house and move and downsize into an apartment or a duplex or a condo or a townhouse. And so you don't want to sell your home. And so then you can use it as cash flow, especially for those of you that might live in, near a, college campus. You might live near, a downtown center, a place where there's some tourism. That's a great place to be able to rent out your home. Now, a lot of people that hear that, they go, well, I don't want to be working. I don't want to be plunging toilets and things like that. I'd say you'd be surprised that for like 9 to 11%, you can get a really good property management company to be able to help you lease it out, be able to make sure that it's maintained, and that can be really, really advantageous, well worth the 8 to 11% that's typically the cost that's gonna go for you. The next one is have a look at what are some of the things that maybe you have been able to save that you haven't been able to tap into. So some people have what's called deferred compensation. Sometimes you'll see this with large organizations where they might have stock options. They might have a literal deferred compensation account called a 457. The other one are personal savings that people have socked away for their eventual retirement. And then finally, the other one that I see a lot of happening right now in the marketplace is our retirement no longer is just sitting there doing the crossword puzzle. Actually, retirement is part-time working. So I've known a lot of people that were, their hobby was carpentry, and they decided their part-time gig is to work at Lowe's or Menards or Home Depot and be able to get their tools and their lumber at cost. And so all of a sudden, a lot of people, as they're looking at retirement, actually have, a 20 to 10 to 20 hours a week that they're actually working, staying active, meeting other people that are young and hungry in life. And that can be really healthy for you, not only physically, but mentally. When we continue to look at the income needs, what a lot of people have, of course, is this is what I want, right? So this is my needs and my wants for my total income at retirement. So where can I tap into my money, right? So all those things that we kind of mentioned before, how can I tap into those things? And then ultimately, you should be able to have not a deficit, right? If you have a deficit, that means you're going to be tapping into more of your savings, your retirement, in order to be able to fund your retirement. And when we look at the projections, if we're tapping into it too quickly, we either have to move out the age at which they retire, we have to reduce their lifestyle, or we're going to have to see about getting a better rate of return if we can based on time. That's probably one of the biggest things that we see for a lot of people when it comes to their time of retirement. They pull Social Security probably at the wrong time. Too often people are pulling at age 62 when they really should wait until age 67 when you look at what they're leaving on the table based on their life expectancy. The other one is not anticipating that some expenses will go down, but some expenses go up, like healthcare costs. The last one is that we're experiencing right now in our lives is inflation. So certain things had a cost 10 years ago. That's a much different cost today. And so sometimes it becomes somewhat so subtle, we might not even notice some of those increases. But if you look at when you were a teenager, let's say at age 16, going to the gas pump versus, let's say now 20 years down the road, if you're 36, it's a much different experience going to the gas pump just because of inflation. And then so another one that people will tell me is, oh, it's too late. I can't do it. It is almost never too late. Of course, if someone hasn't saved a dime and they come to me at age 67 saying they want to retire that year, then really, I mean, what we're looking at that point is basically a pension and part-time work or full-time work. The other way is to be able to have a look at what you're doing from an investment standpoint. Can you get a little bit more return? If you looked at your budget or certain things that you can cut out, for a lot of people, making some small tweaks to their lifestyle can really get them saving a lot more income. The other one is that for a lot of people that might find themselves on the other side of that coin, right, where they've done some good things when it comes to their savings, but they're looking at what they can be doing adjustment-wise. It's not always about gain. I think you hear a lot of gain on the accumulation side, but ultimately it's about what you want your money to do at particular stages of your life when it comes to your investments. Is the big concern really is not losing. Especially as we look at people that are approaching their retirement about 3 to 5 years before that big retirement party and age, not losing income, not losing your savings is actually far more important than the gain. And so it's not the pessimistic approach or the downside perspective as much as it is being real about being able to make sure that you have the highest pot of income when you hit your retirement. And that way you can make sure that you're minimizing as much as you can in withdrawing the money, right? So one of the things that we'll find for people when you run some different projections on the hypothetical percentages that they get, if their first 2 or 3 years are negative and they're withdrawing money, they'll more likely not lose their income quicker and their total amount of savings than somebody that has a good projection of 1 or 2 years positive right before retirement and 1 or 2 years of positive growth during the first years of retirement. And they'll actually typically have money left over when we look at the same kind of lifestyle and life expectancy. The other thing that people aren't taking into consideration of is how their money will be taxed. So a lot of times we ask people, what do you think you're going to spend the most in retirement? Is it going to be the health insurance? Is it going to be the potential long-term care? Or finally, is it going to be taxes? And for a lot of people in the United States, taxes is actually going to be one of your biggest expenses. Most people don't even realize this because they've been socking money away in their 401k or their 403b, and they've forgotten that not a dime of it, not a penny of it has ever been taxed. So they withdraw 100,000 out of it. That's their income for the year, 100,000. Now they owe ordinary income tax on that money. That could equate to about 22 to 28%. Then add on top of it, that withdrawal also then, if you live in a state that has state income tax, now you owe another maybe anywhere between 4 to 6.8%. California, I think, is much higher, but so that's another amount. So if you think about it, if I'm pulling out 100,000, my net gain to me is actually somewhere close to around 65,000 to 70,000 because we're losing so much in our income taxes and state taxes. Now, luckily, if anyone's watching this from the great state of Texas, we do not have state income tax. And so we don't have to worry about those things. So you want to start considering, if you're saving well right now for your retirement, how are you distributing your savings so that way it's diversified on how it will be taxed when you actually pull the money out. So Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks are available at work. Permanent cash value life insurance is another way to accumulate tax-free income. Real estate is another one. So when it comes to having the approach towards income during retirement, creating that cash flow from your savings, from your investments, your how much you're withdrawing, and the effect of inflation on that is extremely crucial to be able to balance between. So in other words, we can't just have it sit at the bank because it's not going to get enough interest on it to be able to stay above inflation. So actually what will happen is by keeping it just at the bank, you'll see your income slowly wither away over its purchasing power. The other one, when we start having to look at it with the withdrawal weights, is that if people are just having just a straight look at, I'm just pulling out money in order for me to survive or me to be able to live, and not really considering, am I going to run out? They just withdraw kind of at will without kind of a thorough inspection. They might find themselves truly in a tough financial situation 10 to 20 years from now, when at that point it might not even be feasible for them to be able to earn income. Now, a lot of times people will see a 3 to 4%, withdrawal rate. And so sometimes people are like, if you get to, $1 million, that means you can pull out 30 or 40,000. The reality of this, when we start running the numbers for people, is that we need to have a look at their tax liability. We need to look at their Social Security, because that too is taxed. We need to look at if they have a pension, or if they have other streams of income that we can tap into, other stock options, maybe that can give us a better opportunity. So that becomes a real interesting conversation, because it's not just this stagnant, hey, here's a number, let's just roll with it. We want to be able to make sure that what we're doing is going to be able to make sense given the current fiscal situation. All right. Another one people often see is this 4%. Again, that's not for everybody. This is just a general kind of rule of thumb. And we need to be able to have a look at where people's pulling a lot of their investments and pulling from, and what could be from their investments, from the real estate, like a reverse mortgage, or it could be something along the lines of cash value life insurance, or other forms of savings like mutual funds. So when we look at being able to make sure that it can last, when we start looking at a 3%, and this is just a kind of a hypothetical, again, using the S&P 500, composite, and also some bonds, be able to see what this would look like in creating this 60-40 is what we consider to be a moderately conservative, kind of right there in the middle of the road investment. So again, it's not focused on growth as much as it is minimizing any kind of loss. Other things to be able to, people need to consider when having a look at their retirement planning is wills, trusts, durable powers of attorney. So if you're cognitively, you can't make any decisions for your health and your finances, somebody can be there that you trust who will be able to make the decisions that you want them to, given your specific circumstances. And then again, It's extremely valuable to have a look at your goals. The more purpose that you have in your plan, the more you're going to enjoy retirement. People that go into it thinking, I'm just going to binge watch, name the show, name the program, or I'm just going to do this one activity that's very isolated and doesn't give much purpose, you'll find yourself very filled with very little content and satisfaction in retirement. So no longer are people busting their physical health in order to get to retirement. More often right now, a lot of people are more on the mental side of things. And so they have a lot more that they can deal with and handle when it comes to the retired picture. Next thing is it makes sense to be able to just have a re-look at any beneficiaries that you set aside, any kind of, especially when it comes to these specific accounts, like your banking information, your deed to your house. You can put what's called a title on death on your house or any kind of other real estate. Also on any of your checking account, savings account, you can already put a beneficiary in there. And that way at death, all of your accounts that have this title of death or this beneficiary designation will automatically get sent to your beneficiaries and not have to get, nobody at the will has to have a look at those things. When it comes to life insurance, by the way, we always encourage people to have a look at what that looks like for themselves. When it comes to one of the biggest things that can kind of erode away at someone's retirement, as we mentioned before, taxes, long-term care is another one. The statistic is extremely high for there being a married couple that they might need assistance mentally or physically in order to be able to make them, have a comfortable lifestyle. And so a lot of times people are making these decisions really, they are making it, their family's making it for them. And so if there's never a discussion about these things because, we don't want to talk about these things, it's kind of a bad omen, I'd say we're going to fall under the adage of if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so even though it might not necessarily be a comfortable topic, it's important to be able to say, okay, if we need assistance, who can help us? Who in our family can be there for us? And if it's not familial, then what do we have? What can we tap into? Who can we really rely on? And so definitely having a conversation about that. A lot of people haven't relooked at their life insurance in a long time, so making sure that they've updated their beneficiaries is extremely helpful. This is a great way as well to be able to pass a legacy after you pass away to people that you care about or an organization that you're truly passionate about. And remember, it doesn't have to be 100%. So I know people that it's literally like 85% to the family, 10% to an alma mater, and then 5% to their favorite charity. And again, you can slice and dice those. So think about that. If let's say you had $100,000, you can give, a $5,000 contribution to a specific school or organization. That's a lot of money. And so, you can say, hey, okay, I'm going to give 85 or 90,000 to the family, but then I want to give, a nice gift to a couple of organizations that I feel very strongly about. So here's are the main risks that when people have a look at these things that you just need to be ever aware of. The biggest one is longevity. We're living longer than before. Now, although I will say that when you look at the actual tables just from 2020, there was a slight dip in age just due to the high amounts of deaths that we did see in people over the age of 65. But as we look at the collective actuarial tables, longevity is a big concern. It used to be a big deal when people get to 100 years old, not so much anymore. The other one that people aren't necessarily planning for, but aware of is the purchasing power of their money, making sure that it does go up over time. And then probably one of the ones that they neglect the most is market and sequential risk. So in other words, the sequence risk is basically a lot of times people will look at the average of their investments when in reality, it's about what's your real experience in the market. And that'll be a really good indicator of how that's affecting your overall funds. So who's going to help you in retirement? Definitely a financial advisor, an insurance agent, an attorney to set up any wills or trusts, and definitely someone that is very competent when it comes to taxes, especially if you have something that's a little more complex. Now, the less complex the situation, the more simple it is to be able to administer. And so I don't want people to think, looking at this, thinking, okay, now I got to go get these 4 people to help me kind of right my ship. If it's a simple approach, again, one of these individuals might be able to help you out. A lot of times as an advisor, our role is to sit more as kind of like a quarterback, if I can use this analogy, sports wise, and we either hand off or throw it to another professional, right? So we don't do your taxes, but we definitely implement and utilize different tools of insurance investments that have different tax advantages to them. So it becomes extremely crucial for us and the tax accountant or advisor to work hand in glove together. At the same time, same thing, if you're invested the money with your advisor, what are you doing to minimize your risks? And that's really where a good plan comes in, that you're able to bounce between those. All right, everybody. I didn't see any questions come in through the chat, but feel free, again, if you want to get in touch with me, you can reach out to me at 262-271-4411, or feel free to shoot me an email at sherman.on@mutualomaha.com. Hope you're all doing great. Have yourselves a fantastic Monday. We'll see you on Wednesday. We're going to be talking about debt management, and one of the biggest ones out there right now for a lot of people under the age of 50 is the big debt of student loans. And the other big debt we're going to talk about is mortgages. So what basically are they? How can I basically minimize how much I'm paying? And so those will be a real good conversation. We'll be doing that 7:30 on Wednesday and again at 8. So we're going to go back to back. I'm going to run it twice. So hope you're all doing great. Sherm's out.